Welcome back to the Welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's a beautiful day. I don't know if this is even going to show up in the video, but we're going to give it a try. It is legitimately cold this morning. I've been asking for this. I've been wanting this. The outside thermometer right there says it's just under 40 degrees, which when you live in Central Texas, that's cold. I mean, yeah, it's cold. Okay, anyways, hope you're having an awesome day. Before we jump into today's episode, a couple quick reminders. Like the video, share, subscribe, do all those things. Sharing means more to me than anything else, because when you're sharing this video, it means not only did you find it valuable, but you believe that it's helpful to those around you. And that's what I want this podcast to be about, helping each other live life to the fullest. I legitimately, genuinely want to create a community of people that are committed to living life to the fullest and to helping each other do that. That is the heart and soul of this podcast. And if you only have 30 minutes a week to listen to something that will help you make life better, more full, more rich, more enjoyable, I hope you keep this podcast in mind. It's a great day. It's a great freaking day. And today we're going to talk about why it's such a great freaking day, because I just crossed the line of 3 months of coming home after having been in the hospital with COVID. So that's what today's episode is about. Today's episode is about what has it been like over the last 3 months to recover from COVID. Now, I didn't do a super extensive deep dive on the YouTube and the Google to figure out what recovery has been like for a lot of people. But in the research, in the searching, in the Googling, and the YouTubing that I didn't find a lot of material on what is it like to recover from a COVID hospitalization. Now, granted, the YouTube algorithm overlords could be filtering out that stuff in the search. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's just hard to find. Maybe it's not out there. My hope with this episode is to provide at least some voice to what it might be like to recover from COVID. Now, disclaimer required, I am not a physician. I am not anything related to anybody in the medical field. I'm just a guy who got COVID, ended up in the hospital, and recovered. And people have asked me, even this week, one of the executive directors in our organization asked me how I was doing. And I said, man, I'm back up to full speed. And I really believe that. I think in the last 3 months, I've recovered to what is 100%. And there's a couple of indicators that would seem to point in that direction. Because, here's a couple of examples of why I think I'm back to 100%. Number one, when I go to the gym, not only am I lifting the weight I was lifting before I got sick, I've actually set some PRs this week. Now, that's not me boasting. I'm not like, woohoo, look at all my muscles. It's not that. It's simply those are some data points that indicate I'm growing and in a healthy way. So that's been really encouraging. This week to hit some new personal bests in the gym after having been as sick as I was, I'm pretty encouraged. So if you're out there and you're recovering from COVID and you're discouraged, I want to encourage you. You can do this. You can get better. You can heal. Do what the doctors are giving you. Take care of your body. Find some additional methods for healing. One of the things that I did was stock up on vitamins and supplements. I'm an advocate for taking creatine. Not that creatine helps with COVID recovery. That's not what I'm saying. My point is I take creatine because it's a supplement that helps my body and my brain. And I think even if you're not doing something that's specifically related to COVID, I think anything that you do to take care of your body and your brain is going to help you recover from COVID. So that's the first indicator. My work in the gym has gotten better. And I'm going to talk about that progression here in a minute. The other data point that I think seems to indicate that I'm getting better is the pranayama practices that I utilize in the mornings. So I'm a big believer in the power of breath. Wim Hof method, pranayama, anything that'll help you breathe better, because the breath is such a pivotal part of existing as a human being. No breath, no existing. Wow. Y'all, if you are listening to this on iTunes, sorry, I just checked the camera to make sure we're still in focus. My nose is legitimately Rudolph right now. That's how cold it is outside, and that's okay. It's going to be awesome. So I'm a big advocate, big believer in pranayama and breathing. And one of the techniques that I use is called box breathing. If you like the really fancy names, Samavitri. I hope I said that right. I don't know why I just put a little accent on that. My apologies if that offends you. Not really. The point is, I use what's called box breathing. Okay, if you've never done box breathing before, all that really means is you breathe in for a certain number of seconds, you hold it for the same number of seconds, exhale for the same, hold empty for the same, and then you just repeat the process. So before I got COVID, a normal box breathing routine for me was breathe in for 7 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, breathe out for 7 seconds, hold empty for 7 seconds, and then just repeat the box, right? In 7, hold 7, out 7, hold 7. That was my whole deal. Then when I got to the couch, when I returned from the hospital, because that's where I lived for the first 2 weeks of my recovery, really, I just pretty much spent my time on the couch. I couldn't do box breathing at all. I mean, taking a full deep breath was not possible for me when I got home from the hospital. It always felt like when I took a deep breath in, I would hit a wall in my chest that I couldn't inhale past. And they were short breaths. They weren't very long. I couldn't inhale for very much. It was like, and that was about as deep as I could go. And I hit that wall in my chest. And I know that's because my insides were pretty torn up, right? So now I got to adjust. There we go. Okay. So that said, when I got home from the hospital, I couldn't even do my box breathing. After the first couple of weeks where I started to build up some momentum in my healing journey, I sat outside for meditation and I started my breathing practice. And I could do 2 to 3 seconds. Breathe in for 2, hold for 2, out for 2, hold for 2. And honestly, part of the recovery journey is embracing the disappointment. Because you can either wail and gnash your teeth against the fact that you are not where you once were, or you can accept it and move forward in healing. That was my experience, because dealing with the disappointment was pretty frustrating. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't take a shower without having oxygen in my nose. I couldn't do any of the normal functions that I used to be able to before I got sick. And I think at times I accepted that, and then other times I wailed and I gnashed my teeth against it. And that didn't make me feel any better, honestly. It just didn't. So I started with my pranayama breathing after the first several days at home. Breathe in for 2, hold for 2, out for 2, hold for 2. And now, 3 months later, after having daily, right, every day, box breathing, box breathing, box breathing. After 3 months, I can breathe in for 7, hold for 7, out for 7, hold for 7. And at times I can do that up to 10. I can do a 10-second round. The problem with that is I can't do it consistently without struggle. So I can do 2 or 3 rounds of that box at 10 seconds. But then I start to get to where I'm like, I can't quite hold it the same, and I get a little panicked and I go back to 7 seconds. But even the fact that I can do a couple of rounds at 10 seconds is really encouraging. So those are the first couple of things that I've experienced that would seem to indicate that I am back to 100%. Not only am I doing what I used to do, but I'm improving and I'm getting better. Okay. So what exactly has recovery looked like for me? And what are some of the things that I had to go through in order to get to this place of recovery? I mentioned it earlier. When I got home from the hospital, I required 2 different oxygen apparatuses. Apparati? I have to talk to an English language arts teacher. I don't know what the right word for that is. I came home with some apparatuses. One was a plug-in oxygen machine. The other one was a portable oxygen tank that I could take to work. So at night I could sleep pretty well. I didn't need oxygen to sleep. Check my oxygen before I go to sleep. Check it when I wake up, and I was doing fine. But to get up and get ready for the day, I had to put oxygen in for the first week and a half, first couple of weeks. I'd put in the oxygen, I'd use the oxygen, I'd take my shower, I'd get ready for the day, take my oxygen into the living room where I would still need oxygen in order to do my prayer and meditation practice. Get up and make breakfast for everybody, still had to have oxygen. Get in the car, and that's where I would use my portable oxygen tank. And that was the funniest thing. That was the thing that I was surprised by the most. Driving was the hardest of all the things that I had to do in a daily life cycle. Of all the things I had to do, driving was the thing that made me work the hardest with my breathing. Now, I wasn't going to the gym and I wasn't doing any of that stuff, but when I got in the car and I needed to breathe, that was really challenging. That was where I used oxygen in a way that I wasn't prepared for. And I almost had to relearn how to drive a little bit and what to pay attention to. So I would get to a stop sign and start to roll through it and be like, oh, wait, I probably should look both ways to see, that car that's about to smash into me. That was weird. So if you're going through that brain fog with COVID, I'm pretty sure that's a normal thing. And maybe comment below, how was driving for you when you were recovering from COVID? Was it weird? Was it fine? Did you struggle? Tell me about that. What was driving like when you were recovering from COVID? For me, it was weird. It was weird at how hard it was and how much I had to actually think about what driving was like. So then I tried to work. Okay, my wife rolls her eyes at this. I tried to work about 4 days after coming home from the hospital. I worked for 2 days, and on the 3rd day I was going to work, I ended up having to take the day off because I couldn't function. I pretty much just slept all day. Now, fast forward a month, because I think I've talked about some of the first month in a previous podcast. But a month in, I started to experience some different consequences of getting COVID that I was not prepared for. Number one, even a month in, I apologize if this grosses you out, but it is what it is. I was still coughing up stuff, phlegm, gunk, crud, call it what you want to. I was still routinely coughing up junk in the morning. And that was just unpleasant. It's just an unpleasant feeling to have to hawk stuff up out of your lungs while you're trying to take a shower and wear oxygen at the same time. That was bananas. I didn't care for that at all. The other problem related to breathing that I had, a month in, was that I was wearing the oxygen that puts the little tubes right up your nose like this. Sorry, if you're listening to this on iTunes, it's the little thing that goes into your nose. It's got 2 little spigots and it pushes oxygen into your nose. And for me personally, I don't know if this is normal. I don't know if this is a thing that everybody deals with, but it burned 2 patches of skin on the inside of my nose. And again, I apologize, it's a little graphic, and I'm going to talk about boogers, but we're all adults here and it's fine. The problem was that it scabbed over, okay? So I had these 2 burn patches in my nose from the oxygen. And it was a double-edged sword because I needed the oxygen to function, but the oxygen was burning the inside of my nose. And it would scab over. And the problem was the scabs would then collect mucus and form crusty boogers and get to the point where it was starting to block my ability to breathe. And so I would have to get up in there and get the scabs out. But that would make my nose bleed, which would make it scab, which would cause more buildup, which would cause me to not be able to breathe, which would make me have to... And it took a good 2 months of being off of oxygen for that to recover and heal. Like, I've still got this one part of my nose that has a little bit of that problem, but for the most part, it's gone. But that was really it was an irritating cycle to be in, because I need the oxygen in order to function, but the oxygen is burning holes in my nose, not holes, scabs, patches. It's burning these areas in my nose and causing me different kinds of problems. So I had to wrestle with that for a couple of months. Pick my nose. Yes, we all do this. Pick my nose, get the junk out of my nose, stop the nosebleeds, rinse and repeat. And then the other significant problem I had in recovering from COVID was that my hair started to fall out. And I would use the term shedding. Like, I couldn't reach into my hair and pull out, like chunks. But I would wash my hair, and a large number of follicles would come out of my hands as I was washing it. And every day that I brushed, I was losing significant. Okay, I counted one time. It was over 100 hairs in one hair brushing. And that may seem like a silly thing, but for me it was a big deal because, one, I've been growing my hair long for 2 years. I love having long hair. And I panicked several times of, oh shoot, I'm about to lose all of this hair that I've spent so long growing and nurturing and cultivating. And maybe I shouldn't be so attached to my appearance, and I'm working on that. There's some stuff in there from the early days of high school and elementary school, not preschool, elementary school, where that was a thing. But I really started to, I'd have to give, like, sweetheart, do you lose hair like this? And, it was like a whole thing. And praise God, after about a month, it stopped. And what's funny now is, like, you can't see it in the video, but I've got hairs of all kinds of different lengths. Or when I pull my hair back, I've got all these little hairs that fall down. And from what I understand, it's not necessarily specifically a COVID thing, but it's common among people who are recovering from COVID, from the research that I did. And what I learned was that when you have a high fever for a prolonged amount of time, your hair follicles can be sent into the shedding phase earlier than normal. And it happens to a large group of them. So you can lose a lot of hair in the beginning. So if you're out there and you're recovering from COVID and your hair's falling out in a way that does not feel normal, that might be normal for your recovery. It was for mine, and it's not forever. Based on the research I did, it looks like that can last anywhere from a month and normalize after 6 to 9 months, based on the stuff that I read. But that freaked me out because I'm brushing my hair and hairs are falling out. And I'm having to ask my wife to, like, check my shirt to make sure I don't have a shoulder, because it happened. I had a shoulder covered in hair that had fallen out. And I didn't realize it because I thought it was just part of, like, my hair hanging out. So that was a thing. But now it's not a thing, and I'm very thankful for that. My hair's back to normal. I don't know if it was something that I did specifically that made it stop faster. I mean, I started using conditioner, which I've not done before. I paid a lot of attention to, like, Trav White and some of his video content. So I started using conditioner. That helped. Started doing coconut oil at night. I think that helped. But the rest of it was I just had to wade through the disappointment of my hair falling out and that not being a thing anymore. And then lastly, one of the things that I noticed more than anything was my ability to move. I was at central office in our district, and I was walking around, and the lady asked me how I was doing, and I said, "Oh, I'm getting better." And she goes, "Oh, I'm good. I really thought something was wrong because I saw you and you weren't moving as fast as you normally do." And that was like a little radar thing of like, oh wow, I am really worse off than I was because I'm just moving slower. And I remember going to the gym for the first time. I think I started going to the gym about a month to a month and a half after coming home from the hospital. So it had been a couple of months since I had been to the gym. My body had atrophied pretty bad. I looked sickly, and that was scary to see all the muscle mass kind of drooping off. So I went to the gym for the first time, and even just doing my warm-up. I'm doing my warm-up, and I'm, like breathing in a way that I don't breathe like at the gym. The first workout I did was a set of 3x12 on squat. I couldn't do 12 reps. I made it to 10. Was like, I better rack it or I'm going to die. And after that first set, I was breathing like, I must have sounded like a walrus to the people around me. And I couldn't even do weight remotely as close as what I could before I got sick. I started going to the gym and my squat sets were like 3 sets of 10 at 95 pounds. And after getting COVID, I was doing 3 sets of 10 at about 115 pounds. And it was hard. It was really hard. And I had to grapple with the disappointment of what had happened to my body. And I think that more than anything is one of the consequences of getting COVID that we don't necessarily hear people talking about. And I think that's a consequence of living as a human being in general. Something happens to us and we lose what we once had. And that becomes very difficult to handle if we don't know how to handle it. At one level, you have to embrace the change, the reality that it's different. And that took time for me. I say that out loud, but that was not an easy thing for me to do. I had to go, okay, I'm not where I was. I believe I can get better. Your beliefs will determine your actions. I believed I could get better, and so I acted in a way that supported that belief. I went to the gym. I lifted weight. I challenged myself to accept where I was, but also accept that I could do more. I could be better. And I think that more than anything is what helped me recover from COVID. I believed that I could be better again. I believed that I could not only recover, but then grow. And I hope if you're out there and you're watching this and you're recovering from COVID and you're having a tough experience, that you're able to find the acceptance of this is where I am today and it's okay. But I believe I can be better tomorrow. That belief, if you'll speak that belief over yourself, I believe it will help in your recovery. I believe that you can get back to where you were. I believe that you can heal, you can be whole, and you can be the person that you were meant to be. So that's a little bit of what it was like for me to recover from COVID. It's been quite a journey, and it taught me a lot about accepting the moment. The Stoics talk about this a lot. You can accept where you are or you can rail against it, but ultimately railing against it doesn't help you. Accepting it does help you because you go, okay, I am as I am right now, but I can be better. It's a both and. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. And I hope if you're out there and you're recovering from COVID or you know somebody that's recovering from COVID, man, I just hope for grace and peace as you embrace this journey and figure out what it means to heal from something like COVID-19. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Hope it's full of beauty and goodness and truth. And until next time, get out there and live life to the fullest. Cheers, guys.